It basically changes your physiology. We only see black and white, or we only see two bad options. You're able to change your emotions and therefore change a lot of your reactions. They have to be somewhat separate from whatever issue they're going through. Obviously right now it's going to be mainly for people who are not requiring as much proof to take action. So today I'm going to talk about the breathing technique, basically explain what it actually is and how it works. Since I put out a previous video going from suicidal to in love with life, but it wasn't quite clear as to how it really worked, and I can understand why some reaction was like, what? So like, it didn't really make sense. I wasn't really explaining anything and sort of bridging the gap between where maybe I used to previously be or think or understand things and how I understand things and go about things right now. So what the breathing technique basically does is it targets your emotions. Most people think about improving their life through just changing what they do, and then that leading to better things in their life, better mental states, better whatever it be. I do something and maybe that changes my feelings, rather than targeting the feelings themselves. So I forgot to add this part into the video while I was recording it. It's just a little bit of a short bit of my story, basically how I went from where most people are to understanding the breathing technique or wanting to utilize it or needing to utilize it. There's a couple of key things. First is everyone starts out with habits. It's why the most high-selling books are like Atomic Habits, and a lot of things focus on what you're doing and your habits. I then found out through the morning routine focus that it's very good to prime yourself, and from that I actually found out that it's good to have a good state you come from to then progress into good habits and then progress into good results. I started meditating, got good results from that, but the meditation only lasts so long. All that morning routine stuff as well, it only lasts so long, and then you get into bad states and then result badly from that throughout the day. So I wanted to become meditative, have that good state of meditation progress throughout the day and sort of be a permanent thing. That sort of led me to the breathing technique. What was also important to understand is that 90% or 95% of all of our thoughts and what we do is unconscious throughout the day, or it's repetitive, the same thing. There's lots of studies you can find online about that. And from that idea, you want to be working on that subconscious level. And that definitely did progress me into the breathing technique, which is more about that fundamental solving of our problems. Being able to change our emotions in reaction to a lot of the problems in our life changes on that subconscious level, on that sort of deeper level. And it does make us meditative. When we solve these issues, when we progress in maturity and consciousness, we become more meditative. And obviously there's many other sort of things that are connected with that come from solving our issues through that emotional integration, that through the breathing technique. So yeah, I'll go along with the video now. You see people like Tony Robbins constantly talking about changing your state, and during a lot of his stage performances or seminars, he does a lot of talking and doing state-changing activities.
All of you have targets, things that you're after. If you're going to get a new result, if you're going to grow your business, if you're going to be able to support your mom, if you're going to get rid of the anxiety, if you're going to be able to overachieve and not have all that fear inside of you, you obviously need to get a new result. You're going to have to get new action. We all know that. You don't get new results with old actions doing the same thing.
Exactly.
What human beings can do, this is a human being, believe it or not, I majored in art. What human beings can do is amazing. What they will do is usually disappointing. It's not because we're not capable of it. It's because we don't have new actions, because we get in certain emotional states that dominate us, like anxiety, like fear of failure, right? Like the fear of the loss of your mother as an example. So if you're in a state of fear, you're going to behave very differently and get very different results. That's what that means right there. Then if you were in a place of being courageous or bold or warm or connected or playful, any of those. So the most important key to changing your life in any situation is to change results, you got to change behavior. But to change behavior, you got to change the emotional state you're in.
There's been a recent trend in, ice baths, saunas, and they're sort of an example of modalities that change your state. And why people gravitate to them is because they improve your life. The breathing technique is an instantaneous, without the requirement of getting wet or needing to a certain place, state changer. So that's what's really, really great about it, is that you're able to change your emotions and therefore change a lot of your reactions and also your perceptions and projections and how you see things, because your emotional state determines how you see certain things. If you're in a bad state, you won't see opportunities, you won't be resourceful in that way, for example, or you'll just see things with an angry lens if you're angry. So or a fearful lens if you're fearful. Having this instantaneous state change through the breathing technique, you're able to improve your life in that way. It is a more background way, it is less obvious. It sort of creates a cascading effect. So you have your emotions, and what those emotions produce are thoughts, and what those thoughts tend to produce without any suppression are concurrent actions that are aligned in that. So that's why the breathing technique is perfect for targeting addictions, is because it changes the emotions which we often look for when we're going through our vices. If you're going to try and get those from a thing, and you're desiring that thing, it helps you release that innate neediness, which is coming from a bad emotion. It changes out a bad emotion so you don't go to that vice in the first place. That's how it's connected with the pornography sort of side of things. Obviously that's in a separate video. But here, talking about just it in general, it just changes things from that emotional level, which will change your thoughts and then your actions, and then it'll change the results. It creates that sort of subconscious cascading effect. Obviously, it's much more powerful than changing your actions. Changing just your actions takes a lot of willpower, a lot of effort, compared to changing through your emotional state. Initial change and then the subconscious generally takes over the more basic changes through such as your thoughts and your actions. It sort of targets the more deep level on things rather than that surface level of things. You can use other breathing techniques. I found this the most successful breathing technique, since it instantaneously has given me results, but also it has, I think, more of a stronger influence on your emotions. How you do it is, it's called the 6-3-6-3 breathing technique, based on the amount of seconds each section of it works. So in for 6, hold for 3, out for 6, hold for 3 again. And that's one round. You generally do it for 3. Connecting with your emotions. Emotions are a lot more complex than we think, and you kind of have different emotions stored in the body. Now this is kind of a pseudoscience-y thing in a way, or something that's just from my own anecdotal experience that may be proven by science in the future. But you'll find whenever you have emotional pain is that it's located within the body. If you close your eyes, you can locate it within your chest or your stomach area. And that's kind of the emotional body that exists. And again, this is just anecdotal things, something you can try out and understand yourself, that science most likely will prove in the future. But if you want to be on the forefront of things, science is going to be not on the forefront of things. Most of those anecdotal things that are a bit more risky, where science proves things more, will come from trying things, testing things out. Obviously, it takes very little to, whenever you're feeling bad, just close your eyes and notice where you feel the bad feeling. And maybe you might have dull senses and it doesn't work, but at least you can try it out and see it for yourself. So it's especially important to use the breathing technique when you're going through really tough times, because often we get immersed in our problems, especially when they're really, really tough, and we don't feel like we can ever find a way out. What this does, the breathing technique does, and have a mechanism of change that the breathing technique is amazingly powerful, because it actually gets you space from that pain. when we're in issues, we're constantly resisting them because we're kind of trapped in a way. We're constantly resisting them, and that way we're immersed in them. We often don't sort of see a way out a lot of the time. But what's great about this is it sort of gives you space by it changing your emotional state. Because you see through your emotional state, your awareness and like what you're aware of is by your emotional state. And especially your emotional state particular to certain problems. By having that change, it sort of allows you to zoom out and gain perspective. For example, I've been given many different insights from the breathing technique because I had a problem, and then when I confronted that problem with changing my state through the breathing technique, I was then able to gain space, relax from it clearly, but in that relaxed space, maybe I had a bunch of dots that were placed, but then they connected once I'm in that relaxed state. So that's kind of similar how it works. So you hear about this idea of the connecting dots that people experience. Well, a lot of the time we have problems because we're consumed in things and we only see black and white, or we only see two bad options. But often with the breathing technique, and what's true in the reality of things, is that there's always more than just two options. But we often can't see it because we're consumed in our issues. The breathing technique allows us to gain space from that, gain perspective via that change of physiology, and then we're able to discover new things and relax from there, have new insights and new perspectives. Often people find that talking about deeply personal issues to other people is a relaxing and easing scenario, because by talking to other people, they have to be somewhat separate from whatever issue they're going through. In the same way, getting a perspective from someone else can sometimes, not always, give us a perspective and an awareness that we don't have because we're often consumed and narrowly focused on our issues. We're resisting our issues. So the breathing technique can give us that focus without the trouble, without the fear and vulnerability of talking to other people. And funnily enough, it actually facilitates it but that way, because we gain confidence to be vulnerable, because being vulnerable isn't so scary. Everything isn't as so scary when we have the strength of the breathing technique. So for example, if we go through shaming or we go through any kind of negative emotions, we know that we have the breathing technique to get out of that, at least temporarily, or at least it can help us tackle those tough times. I've, in the past year or so, I went through one of the hardest periods of my life. And thanks to the breathing technique, I was able to cope with that scenario. More than that, I was able to thrive from it because I had the breathing technique. Even though a lot of the time didn't do too much, it was a really, really intense scenario, but it did end up leading to me having a massive insight, which I'm very grateful for. I'm extremely grateful for having that insight, and that has sort of cascaded. And that's in my Belief product on my website. You can check it out in the description. But yeah, it's massively important. But I'll make it clear, just that last bit, the breathing technique changes your emotional side of things, which are connected with your thoughts and connected with your actions, and then leads to an end result. It basically changes your physiology via the change in breathing. And that's how it can actually have massive influence, because your emotional state is much more dictating of how you experience life maybe than you're aware of. I've explained sort of how that works throughout this video. So anyway, I hope this connects with you. I'm happy with if you have any kind of questions of how this works anymore, and put them in the comments and I'll try and explain all of them, try and go through all of them as much as possible, and help you with this sort of any kind of issues you have with understanding how the breathing technique works and what it does. I hope in the future that there is scientific studies on this, so that it can then lead to insight and helping people if on a bigger scale than just what I can do, or it gives people some proof and a little bit more technical understanding of the intricacies to help them, use it and take a chance on it and give it a go. But obviously right now it's going to be mainly for people who are not requiring as much proof to take action. Obviously this is a very low risk thing, but hopefully at least in understanding it like I have presented in this video, it makes more sense and you know how to apply it, or you kind of have a meaning towards why to apply it, or it can connect with you, and it's not just a thing that I do or I give you results, but no connection to how those results work or how I got them in the first place. Anywho, thank you very much for watching. I hope you really connected with this video, explained things for you. Thank you very much.